Alright, well I'm going to speak a little bit about filtration of air. As air is taken in, there's a moisture content in it. So as it's sucked into the compressor and it's compressed and put into the tank, it heats up and it basically in essence makes a steam. And as that cools down, it releases the water out of it, which is why you need to blow your tank. Now you don't want that coming out of anything that you are using on the tail end, especially a sprayer. Now, an oil compressor will also put a little bit of oily mist in it, and you certainly don't want those in your finishes as well. Well, this is the hang tag that came on it, and on the back side it says a typical airline setup. We would have the compressor sitting right here, and they show an air filter right here that would be directly on the compressor, and then a length of hose, a quick coupler, a plug, and of course the tool you're driving. This is a horrible setup, and the reason is that air that is compressed inside this tank is super hot, and if it only travels from the tank directly to this filter, it'll collect any particulate and maybe an oil mist, but it's going to capture very, very little of the moisture. There's not enough time between the tank and here for this to condensate properly and actually fill this. So it's going to drive that hot air back out through it, and it's going to condense in the airline, and it's going to come out of your tool. Now in the manual, I was going to draw this out, but they actually did a really good job of displaying how things should be set up. The first thing they have here is the compressor, and you can see it goes into a coil of hose. Let's call this 25 feet. And then there are two options. The top option here would be to supply like an impact gun or something that actually requires oiling. So you would have a filter here a good distance away from the compressor, so that air has time to cool down and the condensation come out of it and get trapped in this filter. And then they show a regulator here, and then just beyond that is a lubricator. So if you wanted to supply your air tool with a mist of oil, that's what this component is for right here. Personally, I don't do that. I lubricate my tools directly because I switch hoses like most shop guys would do between one and the next. So I'm using the same hose for an air sprayer and the same hose to drive an oiled air tool. So, but that is a good option right there. And then it comes out into the length of hose down to a coupler, and then this is just a whip. Now on this side for non-lubricated tools, this would be paint sprayers, you're filling up the tires in your car, whatnot. You don't want any water coming out of this at all at this end. So same principle, a long hose, it goes down into the filter right here. That should collect the particulate as well as collect moisture. And then we move down into an air cleaner slash dryer. Okay, this would be like a desiccant dryer right here that you would have filled up. That's an option. And then of course a regulator, your length of hose, and out to your tool itself. This is the basic setup that I use, with the exception of this component right here. I do not use the desiccant dryer. And here's a great example of a stationary compressor setup, one that does not move around. That's in essence, like I said, what I use, but it's a hybrid between the two, and I'll explain that momentarily. So you have the compressor, and right here you have a ball valve. That's very important right there. So if any line busts or breaks in here, you have a direct shutoff. This right here is an isolator. All it really does is prevent the vibrations from the compressor entering into the piping system. It's an isolation. You can see it comes in here and then it tees off and drops straight down. this is the first moisture trap right here. So any water that condenses in this is going to fall down in this pipe, and there's a ball valve at the bottom so you can open it up and flush it out from time to time. So when the air comes in and in essence rises up, it should have most of the moisture pulled out of it, but there will still be some that's going to condensate. So it comes up in elbows, and this pipe slopes downhill and comes over this direction to another ball valve that you could release any moisture that collects in this pipe. Then it tees up, the air climbs up without that moisture, and if it's still a little warm and condensing and dropping water out of it, it comes down this way to this ball valve. And then off of this they have two supplied lines similar to what we just shown before. One with an auto oiler that would go for air tools, and one super clean air running to like a paint sprayer or something that does not require any oil in it. So water is the enemy. You do not want that coming out of the end of any of these scenarios. You want to clean it up before it happens. That is why this right here, even though they say it's a typical airline setup, that is typically how people might set them up, but it doesn't mean it's correct. Alright, well here's my basic setup. I have my compressor in an outbuilding. I have a dedicated circuit in a panel in my shop to where I can flip it on and turn the compressor on and off at my leisure without having to go out there. So the basic setup is the compressor, it immediately goes into a ball valve, and then 25 feet of an air hose. Now this does two purposes. Number one, it's an isolation hose from the hard piping, so I get no vibration coming through here. And secondly, it spaces this first filter well away from the compressor itself. So as this hot air comes in and starts cooling off and condensing, it captures the majority of it in this first filter. But any remaining hot air runs down this pipe, and this is actually below the earth right here, and then it runs up into my shop. So if there's still warm air and it condenses down in here, I have a secondary filter right here inside the shop where I'm at, which is also a regulator. So this is full tilt, 125 psi coming all the way to here, and then I can turn it down and set it wherever I want right here. And this collects the rest of the moisture. And then I leave that filter and I go into my hose reel and I come out to a coupler. Ideally, you do not want to have very many couplers in this situation because they do restrict the flow of air. So as you can see in this setup, I have one, and that's right there at the tool. So this is just an idea on how to set things up, especially if you're splitting buildings. You know, you need to condense here, and then anything else that gets further condensed, capture it here. With this basic setup here, I get super clean air right here, and there's absolutely zero moisture in it. Just an idea. Well, I've been using the compressor for several days now, and I can say it has been working flawlessly for me, given my respect for its parameters. I hope this information is helpful. Time will tell if it lasts for the long haul, but at this point in time, I'm completely satisfied with it. If you guys are looking for a compressor, you might entertain this, but please use the rest of the information I've included here to make sure it will meet up to your demands. I hope this helps in some way. Thanks for watching, and good luck.